welcome to the Skills Room. This is Off Script. I've got a couple of special guests with me today on the channel. So, first special guest is the one and only Mr. Lewis Wright. Good afternoon, Lewis. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Cooks. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself to the channel, and you can introduce our sparkling special guest we've got with us today?
Yeah, well, I'm Lewis Wright. Most of people know me as Wrighty at Boston United. Been a coach there many years. Pretty much furniture at the place. I think that's what I refer to myself as. So the special guest, what we've got with us today, is a good friend of mine, a player who's been at Boston United and is still playing today. A good friend of mine called Mr. Jason Field. How are you, Jace?
I'm good, mate. How are you, boys?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, how are you finding lockdown, Jace?
Lockdown, stressful, missing the game, missing normality, but it's just one of those things we have to get through at the moment. How are you boys feeling it?
Lou?
Great. Obviously, my current situation. Yeah, with my current situation, the shielding, it's been difficult, but you know, it's better than the alternative. That's what I say to many people. So you just got to get through it, stay strong, keep exercising. I've never exercised like this since I was about 12 years old. So all good here. What about you, Cooks? Are you keeping nice and fit and healthy?
Yeah, keeping nice and fit and healthy, and hopefully for the viewers out there, the guys out there, these podcasts will help with the positivity and help just sprinkle a little bit of positive so we can still stay connected to the game. Right, do you want to kick us off with how do you want to start this?
Yeah, obviously this is obviously new to the channel, and obviously talking to yourself, Cookie, throughout the whole lockdown 3 experience, and you know, mainly it's when I'm on my exercise bike. We sort of come up with a bit of a concept for the podcast, and I came up with, I wanted ex-Boston United players, you know, who came through the pathway at Boston United, who made first team and are still playing today. I think it's so interesting, obviously, because I saw firsthand their journey, but for the youngsters out there, for the youth team, for any footballer who has aspirations of making it, these players have done it and are actually making, you know, a part-time living from the game. So I thought it was really important to get guests on like Jace. Obviously, there's a couple more in the pipeline, which we're going to be speaking to. So yeah, just a little bit of an informal chat. It might turn into a bit of an interview at times, Jace, but it's more about you, your journey, and obviously where you're at now with things as well. And also not forgetting he's actually a scummy Liverpool fan as well. So I think that will have to come in the conversation. So let's go. What we're going to go first? Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. So, should we just get a little bit? Should we just find out about Jace as a person first, like who he is, what he does now? Because obviously we know that he played for Boston United and stuff. Should we just find out a little bit about what Jace does now? Just get a little bit of background of him before we start digging into the past.
Yeah. Don't dig too deep. Don't dig
What's that, sorry?
Go on then, Jason.
The past. Yeah, I'm from a sporting background, so throughout my childhood, I've always been brought up with sports. Originally played golf as a youngster. Didn't really get into football until I was 10, 11 years old. So that's probably the first time I started playing football for a junior team, purely because my mates played it. So I quit golf, which probably looking back, I shouldn't have done now because I was half decent at golf. And just joined in, went to be a goalkeeper to start off with. Wasn't really interested in playing outfield, but as a young lad, I was a shy lad. Didn't really turn up to my first training session not knowing anyone, and just played outfield because I didn't dare say I was a goalkeeper. And I think just from then, I've just enjoyed my football, enjoyed my time, and then just went on from there.
I've actually seen you playing goal, and it wasn't a great experience in a charity when you were at Leverton. There you go, Giles. That's the first one. But
I think I
yeah,
was slightly hungover then, though.
yeah. So not one out there for the kids. No, not great advice. But I've seen him playing goal. He wasn't too bad, even though I don't know how many we shipped that day, Jace. Can you remember?
No.
Yeah. But yeah. So what? So you started at that age, that young age. What was your first team? Who did you play for?
Boston Juniors.
Who was the managers back then?
Paul. Oh, you know who he is.
Garner.
Paul Garner, yeah.
All right, Paul Garner Senior.
Senior,
yeah. Did you ever? I thought you played under Melly, didn't you? Did you play under Melly?
No, I didn't play under Melly. No,
I played under Melly at the kids' age group. So from there, so did you just play for that one team, or did you move around local clubs?
I moved around. So I played for Boston Juniors for one season, and Paul Garner left to go to the Boston United Academy.
All right.
And I think from that, like a lot of people left. I went to Boston Pilgrims from there under Jeff Ford, and met a lot of good friends. Boston Pilgrims. I think that season was the first year Boston United set up their academy. I actually went to the trials that year, and I didn't get accepted, so I left. And then I went to Boston Pilgrims. And I think that year as well, I went to the trials the year after and got rejected. So like I played for Boston Pilgrims for a few years, and then I went to Boston Town for when I was under 13s. And then my granddad asked me, he goes, "Oh, there's an opportunity to go training with the academy again. Would you go?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really want to go. Like I've been rejected twice. I really don't want. I'm enjoying my football. I don't really want to do it again." He's like, "Look, just do it this one time for me and just see what happens. Like, it don't matter if you don't get in." I was like, "All right then." So I went training, and then from that first training session, got signed straight away, and then just didn't really ever look back. Under 14s, under 15s, I was flying. I got my debut for the youth team at under 15s, playing against some good teams. So yeah, I'm thankful to my granddad that I took that opportunity.
And knowing you like I do, your granddad was very influential on you, wasn't he? Even in the later stages of football, he used to follow you everywhere, didn't he?
Yeah, massive. Like he took me all over the country. We've been on some journeys that we never like want to go on again. Like some of the routes the sat-nav took us on, we've done it together. Like I owe him my whole entire football career as such. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the things that I've done for him is for him. So yeah.
Yes, especially when you're playing teams in like step 5, step 6, he would travel. He wouldn't miss a game, would he? Even probably when he shouldn't have been going to the games because of the age what he was at and stuff.
Yeah.
He was right by his side, which you need a role model, an influential person like that in your life, don't you?
It was massive.
And if he'd not told you to go for that trial again, you're a young kid, you've been rejected twice. It can be absolutely destroying. It's make or break. It can put people off the game. But obviously,
I think
the positive.
For what he did for me, like I thought I owed him it. I owed him that other chance, and I just thought, you know what, like you say, it's make or break. It's do or don't, and I went for it, and it worked. And like,
so that's a message for the young players out there today. If you do get rejected, that doesn't necessarily mean it is the end. Saying you've got rejected twice, which means you must have kept going, you must have kept working hard. Doesn't just mean if you get rejected once, there's still a pathway for you there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think like I'm a big believer that I don't believe in academy football until they're at the children at an age where they can make their own decisions. As where like when I first went, I was young. I think I was like 10, 11. And I probably wasn't at that point where I really understood what an academy football was or anything like that. And obviously that rejection, I think for any age is hard, but imagine telling a 6, 7-year-old kid that they're not good enough at that age. I think it's brutal. And I think I don't believe that should be the case. I think at that age, they should be there just to enjoy the football. And yeah, I got rejected, but I was in a good enough club or good enough setting that I did enjoy playing with my mates and stuff like that. And when it come to the age where my granddad asked me to go again, I was old enough to make that decision for myself. It wasn't just a case of them just taking me there, me not fully understanding the situation. I knew what I was getting myself into. And I was at 14, I believe 13, 14 is a perfect age because my development happened late on because I didn't start playing football until I was 10, 11. But I don't believe just because you start playing football late that there's not that opportunity to go and progress and be successful in what you want to do.
And that's it. You know, you talk about the development, and obviously you've got these knock-on effects, which, you know, you got to take your hat off to any young kid who gets a knock back and still goes back for more. But, you know, you've seen many cases over the years where, you know, people turn off from the game. They don't want to play it anymore. And you've been missing out on such, you know, a good probably group of people who were late developers who could still make it. I know years ago, obviously Glenn Oddle used to have that second chance academy, whether he still does it. And a lot of people made national, like Scottish national team, and they'd been released even at the 15, 16s and gone to Glenn Oddle's camp and then made it again, which, you know, persistence is the key, you know, having that positive mindset. So you talk about development, you know, so you've gone through the academy. From the 16s, you obviously make the jump into the youth team. Was that a natural progression? You didn't have to retrial or anything like that at the time, did you? Because I know
that was a natural progression. So I just got invited. So played for the youth team. My first game was when I was under 15s. I just got invited down. There was no real pressure.
Was you ever in the youth cup early, like as a 15?
Not that I can remember. I played mostly like the league games, and I think they played in like the Puma Youth Alliance or something back then.
Yeah.
But I used to always get brought on as a striker, which was like never my position. Like I was always a winger when I was younger. I can remember playing against Bradford City, and I come on at half time and set 2 goals up. And I can remember getting in the car with my mum and my granddad, and my mum handed me this like letter kind of thing from Aston Villa. So like a scout was out at the game, and like he was really interested in what I was doing. But like I wasn't a striker, like I was naturally like a winger or a defender. And he kept in contact with mum, come watch me several times. And I always knew when he was there because he would always tell or email saying he was coming down to watch, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, after a few games, I can remember him saying like, is Jason not a striker? And mum was like, no, he's not. Like, he's naturally like a winger or a defender. And he's like, oh, well, I'm looking for a striker. Like, he fitted like what we was looking for at the time. But obviously, I'm not seeing him enough.
Say, well, he can be a striker.
Well, that's right.
That's
it. I should be having words at it right now. But yeah, it is like I've had little like opportunities like that and other little bits and bobs, but like nothing ever major come of anything. So, but my goal was always to aim for like Boston United's first team. That was
as a local boy.
Yeah,
that's what we like to hear, isn't it, Cookie? As Boston fans, you want local crop of talent to be playing for the local club. So, so you obviously involved in the league game. So at the time, it would have been the main man, Steve Welsh, probably, was it?
Yeah.
How big of an influence was he on you and as a person?
Yeah, he was massive. And I think like when I talk about Steve Welsh, like he's old school. Like I think like nowadays, I think young kids have got too much to say for themselves and not willing to put the work in, and easily distracted or put off. But I think Steve Welsh, I remember walking into the under 15s and he was ranting and raving. I was never been so scared in my life of someone like, you know what I mean? You did not want to disappoint because you didn't want that to be you. And I think
when he speaks, you listen, right?
Oh, 100%.
That broad Scottish accent. And honestly, obviously I was around the club when you was there under Steve, and I've got to say, you know, the respect between player and coach player was unreal.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone would go out and leave everything on the pitch for that guy. He got respect in the dressing room, you know, on the pitch. It was a top positive, a very positive guy to be around, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think this day and age that's missing, because I think, don't get wrong, like I've respected Steve Welsh probably more than what I ever done anyone else, but he was harsh but fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's gone out the game. I don't think these days coaches can be harsh to, like, especially at youth teamers, because as soon as someone's told something they don't like, it's up in the air. You shouldn't be saying that, you shouldn't be doing this. And in fact, that made a positive influence on me, because I didn't want to be that guy. And if it was the other way around, like, more people are going to take advantage of it, which I think they are doing this day and age.
Yeah, and I think the same, obviously your age group. So obviously your close mate Scoot, he was in that crop, wasn't he, as well? And people, Bowie, you know, Steve, yes, he had you in the classroom working. He had you on the training pitch constantly every day. He had you playing on a Wednesday afternoon. But he'd also throw in a few red herrings, wouldn't he? You know, he would do like life skill trips and challenges for you. And I think off the top of my head, how fun when they used to do the Santas around Boston.
Yeah.
That was an interesting day for people of Boston, the community of Boston, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Where snowballs were getting thrown from down, stuff like that. But, you know, it was a learning kit. He used to give you a set challenge. I don't know. Was one try and get a kiss off an old lady, walk a dog.
Yeah, get a free meal,
obviously, these are all fun. These weren't, obviously, you wasn't doing any crime to get arrested.
Oh, no, definitely.
But people used to play along, and over time, we kept on doing that throughout the club. And some people were waiting for it. The bank people were waiting for it. The coffee shop people were waiting for it. The police, even. I think they used to place himself in the centre of town, Reading. But it just used to bring out the personalities of the guys, didn't it? And you know, about doing things like that, it's amazing, because a lot of people nowadays, they're very within themselves. You know, they're scared to, you know, express themselves. I know one of the last times we did it, we sent young you I think you know him, Jace, actually, Harrison Holland. We sent him out, and he was probably the only one who would do that. And there's some of the lads who, you know, they had I say the ego, but in the nice way, the bit about him in the changing room, they couldn't do it. They couldn't break that mold. Whereas Harrison doesn't take himself serious. And that's something got to be like in life as well. But no, I think for you especially, is a big influence. So when you played in the youth team, did he ever send you out on loan, or before you made first team?
Yeah, so at 16, I started for youth team. I went out on loan really early at Spalding United, in what is now the ERF 1, which is still in. So yeah, I went out on loan. I went on loan to Boston Town. I went on loan to Brig. I went on loan. Where else? I went on loan to quite a few places, to be fair. But for me, that was like part of the process. Like, I knew at 16 I wasn't going to get into the first team, but I knew going out to these experiences was a chance for me to show myself. And I think the massive thing now is getting to know managers, and a lot of these managers I still know to this day and still have in my phone book. So if anything was to happen, like, I could make a phone call and see what happens. As where I think a lot of people now is like, right, well, if I'm not making the first team, then I'm not going to play at all. I don't think that's the right attitude. As where for me, like, there's a bigger picture in this. Like, if you want to make a half decent non-league career, you need to know as many people as you can. And like, I went on loan to 3 or 4, 5, 6 different places. Got to know lots of managers on different levels, and I always made sure when I left or when I got called back is that they wanted me to sign. And that was the case with a lot of the clubs, not all of the clubs, but a lot of the clubs, that they wanted me to stay. And that's something to take back to the gaffer at the time at United. Say, well, they want me to stay, like, and they say, well, obviously I don't blame them, but we want you here, and just make you feel more wanted, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of you doing that. And like you still got people in your phone book today, because a lot of the players, if they do not, make a year in, year out career at Boston at the first team, they tend to go to these local clubs around the area and they hop around. And same with the managers. There's been a lot of movement. One person might be manager at Holbeach, then they're at Stanford, as an example. But it's very important that you keep them links, and that's what the beautiful game does. Even with the players, how many people do you know through football?
Oh yeah, hundreds.
Hundreds. And and then that avenue opens up even more, obviously, with your career path after as well. So, so when you come back, and you finally made your first team appearance, because obviously you played in the reserves as well, under Glenn Madison, and Bunny and people back in the day. You made the next step to the first team. How did the call up come about? Did the manager, or was it the manager's assistant, call you up, or was it?
So my first call up was when I just turned 17, so it had been a year after. So I was meant to make my debut when I was actually 16 for Boston United in a cup final, I think the county cup final, under Paul Hurst and Rob Scott.
Okay.
Because I come and Steve Walsh saying that they wasn't happy that I was cup tied, so I couldn't play. So I played for Spalding in the county cup, and Boston was in the final and wanted me to make an appearance, but I was cup tied. That pre-season, I played at 17, I played every single pre-season game. So 6 or 7 games under Rob Scott and Paul Hurst. So I was like, and I was flying. I couldn't believe it. I was like, started every game, played every game, played against Wigan, played against like Mansfield, played against good teams. And like I held my own and everything. I can remember thinking, oh my God, like I've made it. I've made it. Like I played every single game. There was no one else in my position. Like, I was like, I've done it, saw it. And I can remember first game of the season come round, I bought Gareth Jellyman in. And I can remember Rob Scott ringing me, and like I think a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Rob Scott, but to be fair, like he's probably my favourite manager at the time, because he spoke everything through with me. He made me understand everything that he wanted, and he said, "Look, you've done literally nothing wrong, but the only thing that goes against you is your experience and your age." And I think looking back then, I was thinking, I'm good enough to play. Just play me, like there's nothing wrong with it. And but as a more experienced thing, football's cutthroat, and they can't take that risk, because if I was to make a mistake in a game and they'd be like, why are you playing him? He's 17 years old. Like, and looking back then, I didn't understand it as where I do now. So when like you look at Premier League, he's still a kid. He's still a kid at 22, 23. Yeah, he is still a kid, but like you've got to have that understanding that football's cutthroat. I never realised how much it was cutthroat until I did get released from Boston United.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing as well, Lou, isn't it? That's the thing, that when you make it, it's one thing making it, but then you've got to go to the next level again. The process almost starts again, because you've got all the experience, like you say, in the youth team, in the reserves and all that. But when you get to the first team, it's like you've started from scratch again. So you've got to prove yourself again. So
it's a results business. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it is.
The manager, if you're not going to cut it, or they haven't got the full trust in you, they won't play you, because you might their job, and their livelihood. So I actually went to Christian James at Boston United, who's our stats man. Shout out to Christian. If you want to follow his stats or his tweets, it's on Twitter at Boston UTD Stats. Give him a. He's an interesting guy. He can come out with these stats from nowhere, dating back to before he was even born. So he's done he's He lives
Righty,
we're lucky to have him at the club.
righty. I'll pop his stuff down in the descriptions so people can just follow the links. And stuff.
You can point down and it'll pop up on the. So your actual first team stats, and I said to you off camera beforehand, I was a bit shocked by him actually because I thought it was more, but I think it's because it was the time frame when you was at the club. And speaking again off camera, you had quite a few pre-season games which I don't think are allocated in the stats, as Cookie was telling me. So your appearances was 16 first team, 13 starts and 3 sub appearances. This is the big one, which I wasn't too surprised about. Goals. Jason, yes.
0.
That's the one. So
you got shots on target on there or not?
Poor mate. So
he could have been a striker for Aston Villa as well. Remember,
he could have been up with a bongler. So seasons which he was at the club, he was with us 2010 to 11, 2011 to 12, and then 2012 to 13. I know there was a few bumps in between all them seasons. So your debut was actually as a sub against
Guiseley. Okay,
not here, mate. Not on this sheet. It's Grantham. 4-0 win in the Lynx Cup 2010.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. League appearance, was it Guiseley?
I haven't got that down, mate, to be honest. Your first start was against Stamford in the Lynx Cup final 2011.
Yeah.
You played for 5 different managerial teams. Could you name all 5 people?
Would Paul Hurst and Rob Scott count as one or not?
Okay, yeah, go on then. Paul Hurst and Rob Scott.
Jason Lee Canterville.
Yeah, and you also played Jason Lee by himself.
Yeah, Graham Drury.
Yeah, and
the old Dennis Green.
Yeah, Dennis. Dennis Green. Yeah, so you played you made 1 appearance for Paul Hurst and Rob Scott, 2 for Jason Lee as a solo, 2 for Graham Drury. You got 5 for Jason Lee and Lee Canterville, and 6 for Dennis Green. So out of them managers, I think you answered this earlier. So straight shooter Rob Scott, he's
I think to be honest, like Rob Scott and Paul Hurst, I would like.
Out of all of them, it helped you, or was the best for you as a player with your character.
I do say, as a youngster, coming up through like the academy and youth team and experienced first team football, Rob Scott and Paul Hurst was really good. And I think the change room that they had at the time, they had likes of like Sean Pearson.
Yeah.
They had Blastock. They had real good seasoned pros. Well, they are seasoned pros now. And I think coming in that environment was massive because look where they've gone now. Like they've gone up and played against like ex-pros. I played with like ex-pros and stuff like that. And I think that environment was massive for me because I knew how I had to behave and how I had to act, because if I wasn't doing the right things, they would be, before even the manager, they would be the ones on me. And you didn't want that as a youngster. You just want to be you want to impress people, and you want to. You know what I mean? If you was in a side, you think,
who would you say out of all of them put on like decent sessions? Which you thought, obviously we might be doing work on a Tuesday, set pieces on a Thursday. Which sessions did you like look forward to?
I think it's hard because like every manager's different. I can remember with like Paul Hurst, Rob Scott, and Jason Lee, a lot of them was like just game-based activities, so the sharpness, so like 5-a-side games. There was no real coaching involved, and I think at that level as well, a lot of the players are either old pros or up and coming, or they're very good young players. So it's not necessarily that training that they need. They don't need to work on the first touch or how to pass the ball or anything like that. It's just getting the match sharpness in, and it will all come together.
Yeah.
I
Especially
think
some of the players at the time as well. They must have, like, I know you spoke about Sean and people. Probably under Dennis. Was you there with the likes of Pidge and people? Was that after?
No, that was after. I was there before them.
Yeah.
So I left Boston United when Jason Lee and I think Lee Cannibal was in charge. Just purely because I wasn't getting the game time. I think I got to that age where I thought, I've waited around long enough. Like, all I want to do now is just play football. Like, I love the game. I don't want to travel here, there, and everywhere and sit on the bench and get the odd game here and there. So I left and went to Boston Town only for a couple of games. And I think Graham Jury got in charge, in charge. And when he got in charge, I got a phone call straight away saying, like, I think John Blackwell asked me, he goes, "Oh, would you be interested in coming back again?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, I think there's an opportunity here for you if you want to come back." I was like, "Well, yeah, obviously I'd love to come back. Like, why wouldn't you?" You know what I mean? Like, so Graham Jury got in charge, come in charge, and I signed. And I think my first game was against Harrogate Town. I think we lost 2-1, and I managed to set up a goal. And I think I got man of the match that game. Yeah, it's like going from step 5 football to Conference North is a massive jump. So like, it's just managing all the different expectations, the different how styles of play is massive.
Just going back quickly, Jason. I know you covered it in there. How did it feel to make your debut? Obviously, because you're from Boston and all that, and you live in Boston. How was it to actually make your debut? Finally make that, when you played your first game.
I don't think I can think of a better experience that I've had so far, apart from the birth of my son. I don't think there's a better experience that I've had. It's just like, because I'm from Boston, so you know a lot of people. When you play for Boston, a lot of people know who you are. So you walk through streets and people will talk to you don't know, and you have a natter and stuff like that. And I think the biggest thing for me is I come and playing a game and the fans started singing my name. I was like, what's going on? Like, no, like it's just surreal. Like, I'm just a normal lad. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it could go the opposite way sometimes when you're a boy as well, though. That's
yeah, don't get it wrong. I've had that side as well.
If you win, you get treated to a coffee. If you're not,
definitely
been brought up to you. But no, it's it's great to hear. Obviously, the passion and that's what it should be like when you're representing your hometown club. So I've got a highlight thing here. This actually a good stat. You actually made a run of 7 straight starts in February to March of 2012, which included Dennis Green's first 5 games, 4 of them wins and 3 clean sheets. So hopefully you kept your place.
Wow. There's a lot to go beyond that, trust me.
3 clean those, that's not too bad whatsoever. Obviously, with all the highs of making it, you spoke about you went to Boston Town and you come back. Obviously, the lows of football, you're getting released, and obviously the injuries, because I know you had an injury at the time, and so because this is why I think this podcast is quite important as a player like yourself, because I know for a fact you had an injury. Other people didn't know you had the injury. And what goes through your head as a youngster when you do get injured? Your first team, you're playing week in, week out. And I think I bring it up many a time to embarrass you, but you got back-to-back man of the match performances.
Yeah.
You were suffering the injury. You're a young lad. What goes through your head? So these people potentially, fingers crossed, Cookie, they're listening to this podcast, can probably not go and make them same decisions.
Yeah. So when I played my first game, come back to Boston United against Harrogate, I can remember late in the game, I went to go have a shot and defender blocked it, and I've kicked his foot, and straight away I was like, I've done something to my foot here. Like, I was in absolute agony, and I come off with 10 minutes to go, and I was like, what have I done? I went to the hospital, I had an X-ray, and I was like, it's not broken, you badly bruised it. I was like, right, okay. So I was like, well, next game's coming up. I think it was against Vauxhall Motors, and it was, I was in agony. I was like, I can't play, but I was like, I've been told that I'll start if I'm fit and stuff. I was like, I've got to play, and I can remember getting Katie Cooper just to pack my foot. Like, I've never seen a foot. I don't know how I've got my foot in my boot, to be honest. It was just swollen, like, with padding and stuff. And I played the game.
Great work from Coops.
Yeah. And anyway, I've managed to get man of the match again. Like, I think we lost still. But I played all right. I just ran my socks off of like what you can do, and did what I could do, the best I could do. And obviously after that game, Graham Drury got sacked, and Dennis Green come in. So I was like, what? And I can remember I was on the bus to a game, and I got a phone call from the hospital. I just got on the bus, got a phone call from the hospital saying, you've got to come back in because you fractured your foot. I was like, I can't come back in. And I can remember telling Kate Cooper, telling Coops, I was like, I've broke my foot. I've just got a phone call from the hospital. And she's like, well, you can't play. I was like, I've got to play. Like, I can't not play. Like, she was like, you can't. I was like, look, it's my decision. I'm playing. Like, just pack my foot like you did last time. I'll be all right. And obviously it's Dennis Green's like first game and stuff like that. And I'm not going to say it affected my performance, but I couldn't perform like what I would like to. And looking back, it probably did affect my performance because I've just gone from maybe like doing really well just to average or below average. And when it's a new manager and trying to impress him, like, average or below average isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so I think I played, like you say, 6 straight games with a broken foot, or it probably healed by the time the end, but like I was just in pain. So I just couldn't play what I normally play. Like, I was holding back. I wasn't making runs that I normally would make. I'd just pretty much be
He's
settled.
going with tackle as well.
Sorry?
He was going with the wrong leg to tackle.
Yeah, no, but that was the case.
To be fair, Lewis, I've heard stories from other podcasts I've seen. I've heard stories that professionals have actually done that as well. They've played games with injuries because they don't want to miss out on opportunities and stuff. So it's
the fear. It's the fear of, you know, losing your place. And as a young kid, you know, what obviously Jace openly said it there. You know, he had to play. He had to prove. So he's gone from back-to-back man of the match performances where he's probably been a solid 9. Because I don't think we've ever had a 10 out of 10 performance from you, Jace, are we? Really?
About it, no.
Probably going for like a bang average 4 to 5 because he's suffering and he's doing things different because he doesn't want that impact on his foot. And, you know, one thing leads to another, and, you know, ultimately it comes up that I think at the end of the season that has been released because, you know, you had to have that healing time as well, and whoever probably came in to take your place is now established himself. So yeah, it was the fear, but he probably missed a longer period of time because he didn't probably deal with it at the time and stuff. So
I think, like, for me as well, like it was more like, I forgot what I was going to say, but like, because you're on a good run, like, you don't want to lose your space. It's hard because you just think, oh, it'll be all right next week. It'll be all right next week. It'll be all right next week. And, like, because Boston United was in like a bad position when Dennis Green come in, like, was fighting relegation. So like results were going against us a lot of the time. So that impacts, like, or highlights your performance more. As where, like, if he was winning every week and I had broken foot, like, no one would question that performance because he was winning and everyone's buzzing. But when you're losing, straight away individuals start to get scrutinized and looked at. Not so that I got looked at, because I think a lot of the time, like, a lot of the fans and stuff, what I read, which I probably shouldn't have read, did back me. But I know, like, some periods that there was something said, and I know that what they said was true, because the matter of fact is what they didn't know is that I had a broken foot and I was playing and I shouldn't have been playing.
Exactly. And the sad thing was that it was all, obviously the internet's big, you know, it's the biggest thing in the world, really, isn't it? And, you know, I know for a fact with you young lads, it was always that curiosity. It's a bit like a Facebook now, Twitter. You just can't stay away from it. yeah, I'm gonna log out, but you still want to know what's going on in the world. And the problem is when you know for a fact a forum is out there or a platform where players are being spoke about, which concerns you, you're always going to look at it.
Of course, I don't get it wrong. It was the best thing to read when it was positive.
a Raheem Sterling or probably a Jack Grealish. What was the Sun newspaper or whoever writing about him? Do you know? And
yeah,
they're always gonna buy a paper to see what's been said about him, and that can affect you psychologically, and it's very hard to turn off from that. And you know what they're saying, but deep down, it was that you got a broken foot. You just played 6 games with a broken foot.
Yeah.
Which, if I had a hat, mate, I'd take it off to you because I don't think I'll play with a broken. So ultimately, you then get released. Obviously, I know your feelings about how you got released. So now you've got to consider, what you're going to do after Boston. But luckily for you, early in the podcast, you said you've got plenty of people to ring up.
Yeah.
But
so
I think you was quite a hot shot target from majority of clubs. So when you left Boston, a lot of people wanted you.
Yeah. So like, obviously, I don't really want to go into it, but the way I was released, I wasn't happy with, and I did tweet something about it. And within minutes, Dennis Green did ring me, in fact, and said, "Look, that shouldn't have gone on. We're not releasing you. But we want you to come back to pre-season." And I was like, because I spoke various times before about new contracts and stuff like that, and there's always said, yeah, it's going to be sorted, it's whatever. And I was like, and when he said like I want you to come back to pre-season, I was like, well, is there going to be an offer? And he said, no, we want you to come and then we'll look to. I was like, well, if you're not going to offer me anything, then I'm leaving. And like, I'm always in two minds, like, should I have left or should I have stayed? And but like, because I think when you're 19, 20, like, I just wanted to enjoy my football again. I didn't want to second guess where I was going, where I was not. And like, I always said, like, Paul Hurst and Rob Scott was a big influence in my life, but also like Graham Jury. So I only played twice with Graham Jury before he got sacked, but he always kept in touch.
Yeah.
When he found I got released, he was the first person to text me saying like he couldn't believe it, like it's a joke and blah blah blah. And he's like, I'm going to set you up with a team. His original plan was for me to go to Grant. He wanted me to go to Grantham Town, but they signed a left back on loan from a league club or something like that. And then I went to Lincoln United under Dave Frex, and I played 3 games with Dave Frex and played Stamford, who were a league above in the cup. And Graham Jones texted saying like, I know David Staff, who used to play for Boston United.
Yeah, Staffy.
He was the manager of Stamford. And we played, and I think we got beat quite heavily, to be fair, like 5-6-0. I remember getting a phone call saying, like, I got 7 days from Stamford. I was like, bloody hell, like, got beat 6-0. Like, but I did play quite well in that game, like, even though we got beat 6-0. And it's like, yeah, we want you to come down. And, like, Granger was like, look, Staffy wants you, mate, you should go. Like, so I went to Stamford, played, I think it was 1 below Conference North for the rest of the season. And then I think, like, just after that season, I kind of just, like, fell out of love with the game. Like, I did enjoy it at Stamford. Like, we was fighting relegation. We survived. But I just fell out of love with the game. And I think, for me, as a young lad, I give so much of my life to football. I didn't go out New Year's Eve parties, didn't go birthday parties, didn't drink Christmas Eve, didn't do anything properly because I always had a game Boxing Day, New Year's Day. And I think once I got released and set, I was like, do you know what? I've given so much to football. Like, I think it's time for me to like live my life.
Yeah.
So I like, wrongly or rightly, I did, and I found the love of going to the gym. I got too big. I found the love going out and partying, and that impacted me massively. And before you know it, like, you drop down the leagues, and that's part of it.
And I tried to advise you to stop drinking Coca-Cola, Monsters, and stuff. I think I still do to this day. But you know, it must have been pleasing for you that obviously people did want you. You know, you were in eye of different teams. Like obviously, since Boston, you've played Boston Town, Stamford, Lincoln United. Who I know you had a bit of a soft spot for because Grandad loved you being at that club, right?
Yeah.
Right? Spalding and Pinchbeck, and obviously you're at Skeg Town to this day. So with you playing for the teams, we sort of bypassed it a little bit. So whilst you was at Lincoln United, Stamford, you've actually, because you're a part-time footballer, you're obviously your full-time job at the time, weirdly, working for Boston United.
Yeah.
The club who just released you as a player. So obviously I worked with you, or you worked with me because obviously I'm furniture, but it was it never impacted your work. You was very, very professional throughout. You know, football was one thing and then work was another, even though you were working for the release. So obviously very professional in that way. Did you always want to be a coach, or was it just an easy exit route from football? Did you ever have any other career aspirations?
No, so like I think for me, like I put all my eggs in being a footballer. I never really thought outside it, because growing up throughout the youth team, like as bad as it sounds, like I was always told like, oh, you'll make it, like just keep doing what you're doing, you'll make it. And I think as a young lad, like you believe it. So like you don't think of other avenues that you need to go down and stuff like that. And whether that was right advice or wrong advice from whoever, I believed it. So and the things that were happening like around the scenes, I was thinking, oh yeah, it is happening. Like I'm going to keep going with it. So when it comes to it, like I was like, wow, I'm at that age now where I need to look for a job. And it's my granddad again who spoke to, who did he speak to? I can't remember who he spoke to. He spoke to someone at Boston United and said, oh, there's an opportunity at United in the community. Because I think it was you actually who was off at the time. So so thank you for that.
All right, mate. I had to lose a kidney for him.
That's it, mate. Another one's lost, another one's gained.
Yeah, that's it. Luckily, I gained one back.
But and there's an opportunity of working a couple of hours a week with United, and I did, and before I knew it was full time. So I just kind of fell into the job. I really enjoyed it. So I always knew I wanted to be in sports, and that just fell in nicely, really. So
that is one of the good things about football, that when you do finish a footballer, there is loads of different avenues you can take, especially now. I mean, Writer, you'll probably have to tell me because you do quite a bit with the youth team now. There is loads of stuff that needs doing. There's loads of job opportunities that are there. So there is jobs there that can help you still love that game and still do what you like doing, but just obviously slightly different to playing full time.
Yeah, and my advice would be to anyone who obviously has aspirations of being a pro footballer is, don't get it wrong, you've got to invest your whole life into it, but have an alternative, have a plan B, because if you don't want to be in a situation where you think, where I'm going to go now, do qualifications to be a sports coach, go to uni and do your degree to become a PE teacher or a teacher, or do your building or plumbing or whatever, because it's a great fallback, because there is opportunities to have a good job. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of players who have a great living and play semi-pro football and earn a lot of money from it. And at some parts of semi-pro football, there's as much football in semi-pro football than what there is in full-time football. So I know a lot of players that have come out of full-time football to play semi-pro football to earn more money. So don't get me wrong, it's not about the money, but like the opportunities are always there. So you just got to conduct yourself in the correct way.
Yeah, what I liked about it at the time, obviously when we're taking you on, if I was off, I was off. It's many moons ago. But what I liked was that we was getting somebody from within who knew the club inside out, around the place, day in, day out. You knew the people, the personnel from the club. And it's good to see a natural progression from, you put the work in the classroom, which was based at the Jakeman's at the time, at York Street. You put the work in, got your BTEC, and you did a sports coaching course. So really, ultimately, at the end, it's good to see these people come through. You know, and I think obviously working alongside, and I think at the tail end of it, you being at the community program, obviously Cookie had just come in as a volunteer. You know, the rapport you had with the kids and stuff was second, and on the schools, he was a well-liked person within the schools. You know, around the club, everyone liked you. So, Jace, I'm going to ask you, why did you leave?
Why did I leave?
Why?
I think like gets to that stage of life where you're just looking for opportunities, and an opportunity presented to myself, and I couldn't turn it down. It was an opportunity to like better myself, even though maybe another opportunity would have come within the scheme. But I was at a point in my life where I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay around Boston United like all my life, or what am I going to do? I'm going to branch out. And I think like when I left Boston, it was like an affair in a relationship, really. Like it was, I was so gutted. Having to be around the same people every day, knowing that I've just been released or what have you. It was hard. It was hard at times, like when you see people, oh, what's happening? Where I think the best thing for me was to get away and look elsewhere.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to do that to not grow up, as you know, in your maturity status, but you know, just blossom. You know, think that you can do stuff by yourself, and not be so safe, because obviously working at the same place where you knew us all anyway. Throughout the years. No, fair play to you for doing it. Currently happy across at Multisport Pro?
Well, it's Premier Education now, but yeah.
Premier Education. Oh, they've gone up then.
Yeah.
I do like those people who... I do listen to Jace when he tells me about his work. So, you know, back to obviously current day footballing. So before we get on to Skegness Town, what about the experience Boston Town? So I've got down here 2017-18 season, where you made a massive 45 appearances, which was one of the records that season, which fair play. Obviously, at the helm was our local guy, Gary Frost, managing, and you had that excellent run in the FA Cup. If you can just speak about what that meant at the time as well, because, any team going quite far in the FA Cup, not only the money side of things, but as a player as well, it's got to be awesome, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I can remember, I think I was at Spalding the year before I went to Boston Town. And I had an injury at Spalding, so I went on loan for a few games to Boston Town when Frosty was there. And I think like a few things went on at Spalding, so I left, and I did end up going to a thing. And I think Frosty, to be honest, he brought a good group of players together, local players, like some very, very good players that come out of the Links League or different teams. And to be honest, if that group of players stayed together, I think that year we would have won the league, because we were flying in league and in cup. And I think we got to, I'm not sure what round we got to, but we was, I think, 1 away or 2 away from first round. I think, I can't remember who we lost again. Hyde, who went on to play MK. We lost against Hyde, who went controversially, who went to play MK Dons on telly. So
yeah, that Hyde team, Cookie. Do you know who was in goal that day?
I don't. We all went to watch the game, I remember, but I can't remember who was in goal.
Well, I knew this actually through again, a local lad around the area in Danny Madison, who scored the penalty that day. And he said he recognised one of the Boston United goalkeepers. It was actually Pete Crook. Was in goal. Obviously, Crookie was our goalkeeper last season. He's reserve goalkeeper this year. So interesting stat there. And that wasn't one of Christian. Really? That's in fact, it's not even mine. It's Danny's. I hadn't realised Crookie was playing that day, to be honest. But obviously throughout them seasons, being at a Pinchbeck or a Lincoln United, Boston Town, you sometimes helped me out when I was assistant at Leverton. You was a goal machine for us, to be fair. If watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think every year it pops up on my timeline about Jason Field's penalty in a 16-0 victory. I still watch it. I think he didn't catch it very good.
I scuffed it. Studs.
It was a and I put a lot of pressure. I was nudging Giles, the manager at Leverton, and saying, "Let Jace take it. Let him do it. He hardly gets to score. Bless him."
Yeah, I probably scored my best goal for Leverton. Didn't I? That overhead kick.
Oh, the overhead kick was very nice. Who was that against? Now I'm thinking.
Gives a B, doesn't it? B.
Was it Bennington?
Was it Bennington? I'm not sure.
It was a little dink, and then it was. Are we going full bicycle on that one, Jace? Or are we saying like a side volley?
I think it was over. I go for overhead. It wasn't bicycle. It was overhead.
Yeah, we'll go. I know the landing after wasn't very good, was it?
No, I was a bit overweight back then.
But a game's a game, and that was a good thing. If he didn't have how much he loves football, if he didn't have a game, he'd be the first one, if he was rained off, calling me saying, "Hey, you got a game? Is there any chance I can play?" So that's, don't matter what level of football, a game's a game. So current day, we're nearly wrapping it up. Actually, we're coming to the end. So Skegness Town. So you moved from Pinchbeck. I think was at Pinchbeck. You went on loan to Skeg, and then or a dual registration, I think it is.
Yeah.
Went back to Pinchbeck, finished off there, and then at the start of the season moved to Skeg. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you've been there 2 seasons. This is your second.
Probably my longest stint at a club, I think. This.
There we go. And
at any one time.
Yeah. There?
Sorry?
Currently enjoying it across it. Obviously, we're not playing at the minute through to.
I made a decision when I left Pinchbeck. I was like, this is my last year playing football. I was like, I've had enough. Like, for 3 or 4 years, I just did not enjoy it. I was literally turning up for turning up. I said to myself, like, this is my last time. I was heavily overweight. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it up. Like, my dad passed away. So I was like, I'm going to give it up my all this year. Like, I've got nothing to lose. So hit the gym, lost 2.5 stone, and signed for Skeg. My first time I've ever had to ring or talk to someone to go sign for, which straight away says to me, like, what am I doing? Like, how's this gone for me? And it's probably the best thing I've ever done. I got there, got my head down, got the fittest that I've probably been since I was at Boston United, and just ran right that league. I just enjoyed every part of it. I never played so well. Yes, it is a lower league, but I could easily play, or felt I could play back in Conference North easily, fitting back in. But I owe a lot that season. I think outside the season, I did have a few offers to go higher again, above UCL, back into step 4. But I said no, because I think...
Who originally signed for at Skeg? Was it Bunny originally?
First time, yeah. And then I was only there for a couple of games, and then obviously Bunny left, and then Nate Collins and Chris Rawlinson took over. I know Rawlo from when I was younger, when I first signed for Lincoln United. So I got in contact with Rawlo and just said, look, can I come training? Like, and he's like, yeah, of course you can. Like, and then from then, never looked back.
Fantastic. And hopefully, when everyone's got vaccinated and people are ready to brave and make the decision to get football back, and everyone will welcome it back with open arms, and hopefully get you back on the pitch. What are you doing during the lockdown times to stay fit? Do Skeg do it like a Zoom session a bit like this?
No, really. I think at the moment, like, everything's really up in arms. Like, it's difficult because it's not yet been cancelled completely. Like no one knows what's going on, so it's a case of like we know after this lockdown, when it finishes, we could have a game. We don't know. It's hard. Like for me personally, I'd rather know, because if we haven't got a game, that's fine. Then I can have a rest period, and then I can start new season and start to get fit again within a decent time. So at the moment, it's like you got to keep yourself ticking over every now and then. But then it's like, do you keep going? Do you not? It's a difficult period of time at the moment, because like you don't want to put effort in for when there's not an end result, if you know what I mean. You want to have a goal or a focus, and then you know when to push for that.
Just try and keep ticking yourself over, isn't it, really? That's all I seem to be doing. I haven't got an end result. I think mine's going back to work. So
the new stadium, Lou. Let's go.
Very much forward to getting moved into our beautiful new home.
You'll have to give me a tour.
Yeah, I'll have to learn. I'll have to drop breadcrumbs at the. So big. Fantastic work by obviously the chairman at Boston United. So
what a bloke he is, by the way.
Yeah, top man. So Liverpool fan at heart. I might have to wash my mouth out after. What's the result going to be tonight?
Well, hopefully it's going to be a win.
Well,
I think 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, they're coming back into it.
Yeah,
interesting stat that Salah's. What did you send me, Cookie? Is he 19 goals away from Giggs' all-time record?
All-time record in like 50 fewer games or something like that.
So it's like 400 and something games, isn't it? 400 and something games less.
Yeah.
Different times. We had proper footballers back then. He gets a lot of penalties, didn't he?
To show that Giggs is overrated, doesn't
it? I think that's another podcast, that one, isn't it? Giggs overrated. Wow.
And Paul Scholes. I think Trent's nearly level Paul Scholes' record.
Don't start me off on that.
Well, it's facts, mate.
You'll have him. You'll have Cookie chiming in with Lampard with his goals. So, what would? Here we go. I need to change. Can I move my camera around? All right, Jace. What would you? What advice would you give to younger people? And what advice, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give that person right there?
Wow. Look at that stud.
Look at that. Oh, that one.
Oh, God. All right, spot.
So young.
Jason Field on Google if you want to find these pictures, by the way.
It's an easy find. What advice would you give him? Would you change anything? Is there a moment where you would change and do something different? Apart from the injury, surely. The injury, would you change that?
You know what? No, I would not change. I wouldn't change. I don't believe in regrets. I believe like everything happens for that reason, but I believe that also like you make your own luck as well.
Yeah.
So my advice would maybe be just do everything if you want to be a footballer, do everything you can to be, or try do everything you can in your power to contribute to that. Or if you want to be a sports coach, go out and do things to work towards that. Like, it's always difficult this day and age I think you're very lucky if you do make it pro, but I always believe that the good players do eventually, if it's not straight away, or whether it's like Jamie Vardy, for example, late into his career got spotted. There's always that opportunity, no matter what level you play at. And I think this day and age, especially, bigger clubs are looking into non-league leagues for players to come through. I think especially not necessarily at the point where I was, but this point now, probably the best opportunity that you're ever going to get, especially for players.
I see there's a the young lad who plays against has played against our 19s. He played for Chester, and he's had all these different accolades. You know, he's been there since he was 9, and he scored important goals in the FA Youth Cup, and lots of different accolades leading up to first team appearance and everything. And he signed for Stoke the other night. And you know, I do think there is opportunities for these younger kids who play non-league. Like you said, if you're good enough, you'll make it. Cream always rises to the top. That was a saying my dad always used to say to me.
Yeah.
You know, you've just got to put yourself out there, like yourself, with the phone book of people, your contacts. You know, if you go into a change room, get to know people, because it will lead on to it. Like the interesting story about Matty Hawks. He was at Southport. This American had come across, and obviously Matt was telling me the story. This American had trialled at all these different clubs. He'd gone to a dressing room. Nobody wanted to speak to him. Matt did. Matt befriended him, and he used to go out, visit him in America. In fact, he sees him quite a lot now, because he's literally got an opportunity which came through him in the States. So
it's not necessarily knowing managers that get you opportunities, knowing the players, because some players have quite high authority in clubs. And I know if I spoke to my manager now and said, look, have a look at this player, get him in, and he would, because I've worked hard to try and gain his trust in whether it's my football or my knowledge or whatever. So just getting to know players is as important as knowing other managers as well.
Definitely. So, yeah, that's it's good advice. Good advice to take on board. Cooks, is there anything from you that you want to add before we wrap it up?
I obviously didn't see you play much, Jace, but what I've heard, you sounded like somebody who tried your hardest and, you know, really, really worked for it, which is obviously all that we can ask for. That's all that me and Wrighty ask for as coaches. It's just try your hardest, try your best, keep training, keep working hard, and like you say, them opportunities will come to you.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, like, this is why I have no regrets. I know I tried I know how I tried my hardest. I know there were certain implications in the way of maybe not always performing my best. But I can look back and thinking I have no regrets in what I did, because, like, if you're good enough, you're good enough. And unfortunately, that was the case. Like, maybe I wasn't good enough to make that next step. And I always believe that eventually you do find where you should be, and it's just part of the process.
Definitely. Now, well, I want to personally thank you as a good friend for taking the time on your busy furlough schedule to come on to the podcast. Obviously, I want to thank Christian again for the stats, which he got to me within less than 30 minutes. That's not
a good thing, mate.
Just remember, if you want to check out Boston United stats, make sure you follow him at Boston UTD stats on Twitter. As I said before, some very interesting stats about the players of Boston United over the years. But no, thanks again, Jace, for coming on, and hopefully you being an absolute popular local player now, this will get views, and we are looking at ex-Boston United youth team players who have made first team, who are still playing today. I've got a few more on the radar. I've got one penciled in. I don't know when it will be. We'll just need to find a time. So the next guest, I think it will either be a solo or a double whammy, Cooks, and it is going to be Aaron Butcher and Dan Cotton, who played first team at Boston United. So whether it will be just Butch by himself or whether it will be both, we'll have to wait and see. So we might actually have a double whammy. But Jace, thanks for being the first guest on Off Script.
No worries.
I'm Ryan. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah.
Glad, boys.
Yeah. Thanks, Jace. Cheers.
No worries. Cheers, boys.